a little
Yes,
clearing? Okay. Just
folks,
a little,
a quick
okay. I mean,
clearing.
yeah, they might as well get a little, okay. So people are tapping into the collective consciousness because energy is, we're always absorbing. We absorb energy, but what keeps it stuck to us is the stuck pain within us, and that attaches to it. So the collective consciousness right now, there's a lot of agitation, and people are wanting to either they're wanting to run or avoid. It's just so much going on, and that's what's going on. Is I feel that fight or flight, like wanting to either fight or. So what if you stayed? And okay, so what people are running from is confrontation. This is a relationship show too. Confrontation.
Yes.
Interesting. So all the ways you have been choosing to either run from or avoid communicating with another one because you see it as confrontation and you are afraid of confronting the other person. Let's clear that on out. Release any resistance to clearing that out. Okay, so what I saw there was two people facing each other. And it's like, okay, I'll stand there and I'll face, like, in other words, ready to be accountable. So let's be accountable. But then you get your fight on. So it's like, okay, if I'm going to be accountable, and instead of communicating, people are seen as confronting. And there's a lot of that going on. Look at, whether it's religion or political issues, people, instead of communicating, this is my point of view, this is what I believe in, and the other person, okay, this is what I believe in, they're confronting. This is, I'm right, I'm right. So instead of, so what just shifted there? Instead of running or avoiding, people said, okay, sure, I'll be accountable. Instead of saying I'll communicate with my partner, friend, colleague, whatever it is, they said, I will confront them, and the fight goes on. The fight energy starts. And this is most people in relationships, any kind of relationship, friendships, business, or romantic relationships, rather than really communicating, they confront. So, and there's a fight energy there. So this is fight or flight. First it was like flight, avoid, and now it's fight. So all the ways you are ready to fight for, okay, this is fighting to be right. So all the ways you believe you need to fight to be right, and your ego mind is stuck at being, it has to be right. Let's clear that out. Okay, so if you're not right, so what's coming in? How's the sound? I just saw that. So what's coming, if you're not right, then I'm wrong. This, I see many, many people. Most everybody's stuck in this. I'm either right or I'm wrong. And if I'm not right, so I have to fight to be right. And if I'm not right, then I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, well, that means, and then we give it a meaning. I'm a failure. I haven't done things right. I shouldn't have even tried. So then you're either fighting. So common behaviors in, personally or in relationship are either avoidance or some kind of running away, so flight. Then, or if you decide to, be accountable and communicate, then there's fight energy. And the fight energy is about the ego wanting to be right. And because that's what we're taught, to be right. So then then you make it about right or wrong. And right or wrong, and that's the way most people communicate across the board, is about being right or wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that two people in relationships are willing to have done, or at least have a high self-awareness and accountability, because then they can communicate and leave the ego at the doors. They can walk out of the door after communicating, pick up their ego if they want, that wants to be right. But when you're communicating, what communication is all about is creating a safe place for the other person.
Absolutely.
Right. So, because when somebody feels completely safe, I've had clients say to me, when I'm, in an intimate relationship or something, I just feel like I have a wall up. I want to take it down. I just want to feel vulnerable and free with them. And I said, that's because you don't feel safe. Why would you want to completely let yourself go, be relaxed, at ease, just have great sex or whatever it is when you're not feeling safe? Of course
Right.
you're going to have that wall. And
Yeah.
safety starts right at the beginning, communicating, being authentic with each other, like working on yourself, being accountable, not blaming the other person, not making the other person wrong, as you know. So probably if I was to say one thing to be aware of personally and in relationships, are you fighting to be right?
Hmm.
And
I think that's a big one. That's a big one in a
it's
relationship.
huge,
Yeah.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be, I want to be right. I know I'm right. I know I'm right. So absolutely.
And it prevents the other person from being heard when
Yes.
you're fighting to be right. Or if you have an agenda, like you're listening to the other person. I think we've all felt that, where we're supposedly listening to the other person, but before they barely get the last word out of their mouth, we'll say something or they'll say something, and all they're doing is listening with intent that you will shut up so they can say something. They don't even hear what you're saying. When you can completely leave your ego at the door, and it's called dialogue, and dialogue create that safe space and dialogue, and really, then you can get into consequences and agreements and all of that as well.
Yes.
And so we didn't really do a clearing. It got more into, I'm not getting a clearing right now. That's what most people really want to be aware of. Say the political issue. People love to talk about politics
Yes.
and this and that. All that is two people wanting to be right.
Yep. That's it. That's it. And what, of course, for those of you who do not know, Joy is from Canada, so she's been spared our U.S. politics, but not really, because it's all over the news.
Oh yeah.
You're absolutely right, Joy. It's Republicans want to be right, Democrats want to be right, and I don't know where that's going to go. I mean, how do you tell millions and millions and millions of people that, hey, listen? How do you tell the Democrats listen, Republicans listen, stop talking and listen? Listen to each other.
Okay.
Because, somebody wants to be right. Our president wants to be right.
I can feel the agitation starting already. Like it's literally, just wanting to be right.
You feel me getting, yeah.
This is where, because there's layers with everything, looking at the higher plan of this. This is where light workers need to step up. And I was talking about vibration earlier when it kept getting cut off. This is where vibration is going to make a difference. Like the light workers, the change makers, the way showers, we've been sitting in the back and, just being quiet. We can't do that anymore. Humanity needs us. The earth needs us. Animals need us. I mean, we need, thanks, Cassie. Like we need to be, it's our time, whether you're doing this show or I'm doing this work or somebody else, whoever is out there, to get out there and start raising the vibration. That is the one thing. It seems so abstract. It's the one thing that's going to shift things. And it's just like, look at religion. People kill over religion, and it's all about the fight to be right. And I've worked with clients, I've done their scanning, clearing, gone into the energy in the picture, and I can tell, and they're very conscious. They've done a lot of work on themselves, but they would rather be right than happy. And so I've said, and I've cleared that, worked with them, and doing the scanning, clearing, the remote work. And they've emailed me back and said, oh no, I would rather be happy than right. I always, and I said, yes, consciously, you'd rather be happy than right, but it's running in your unconscious. You're not even aware of it. So for anybody that's listening, if something isn't working in your life, or you're stuck in struggle, or there's just, seems every time you take a step forward, things just don't work out, or something's, chances are you might believe consciously, I would rather be happy, but you're choosing to be right. So just be aware of that and really take a look at that. Am I choosing to be right? I get into it. I'm pretty aware of myself, but I'll notice myself. All of a sudden I'll be, trying to figure out a problem or something, and And all of a sudden I'll go, oh my, I've been stuck to being right. Okay, well, let go of that one. So it takes some digging. But if something's one sign is when things aren't working out and you're stuck in power struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I've been through 2 bankruptcies, so I'm, the whole money thing. But I had a session, my first phone session, one-on-one session with Emmanuel Dagger.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's pretty well known. He does some pretty intense work. I spent my whole time, I realized after I got off the call and it was all about money and finding, starting my own business, like getting out of the lack and limitation and scarcity mindset. And looking back at that call, I got off it and I went, I just spent the whole call fighting for my limitations.
Yes.
Because I was so attached to my story. His intent is to move me to a higher vibration. But everything he came up with, like I was talking about earlier, how the mind will look for evidence of that which it proves to be right. It's gone through, this is right. So we'll look for evidence of that. Like actually, because we can only focus on so many things at a time. It will look, and so I had all kinds of evidence that I was, didn't have much money and I was broke and my story, my bank account, and I could give all kinds of evidence, but that was my story.
Yes.
And so it's looking at it from another perspective. That's where vision is so important. And so then moving into the energy of abundance and feeling that. What would it feel like to be able to have enough? Well, let's start, know you've got enough money at the end of the month to pay rent, to pay bills, to buy groceries, to, take care of your car, to travel, to get up and do this, to start this business, to take this action. What would that feel like? That's freedom. What people are most afraid of? Freedom.
So Joy, it's more of an unconsciousness, right? I mean, because if we pick somebody out of the audience and say, Cassie, are you afraid of freedom? Cassie's going to say, oh God, no, I'm not afraid of freedom. But it's the unconscious stuff that you're talking about working on. When you talk about going deep and doing the work, you're talking about going deep into that unconscious, those types of programs, and bringing that stuff out, because nobody is, if you say, hey Donna, do you want to be free? And I'm like, yeah. But if you said, okay, unconscious, let me talk to unconscious Donna and let's see if she wants to be free.
So I was doing a scan and clearing today. Well, it was a clearing, and I was, doing some, and clearings, as you know, are real time. Just what comes up, we clear, and I just keep following the energy. And all of a sudden, as we got along, I went, oh, you're afraid of freedom. So how come you're afraid of freedom? Well, freedom means, freedom and expansion. I have to make choices. I have to make decisions. I have to take action. I'm going to be meeting new people. There's going to be new consciousness. How are they going to react to me? How am I going to react to them? Am I going to do this? What will I spend my money on? How will people think? All kinds of things. So it's one thing to say, oh yes, I want to be free and I want to do all this. But freedom is a whole new consciousness. And if your person's lived in lack and limitation and struggle their entire life, to move to freedom and abundance and expansion and movement and flow and ease, what if life was easy? Initially that sounds, sure, I'll go for easy, but then when a person is so used to that tangled up energy, that web of struggle, and often there's manipulation in there, we're not even aware of it, passive aggressiveness, and all of a sudden there's flow and ease. It's like somebody who wins the lottery, who's been, broke pretty much their whole life, and they win the lottery. 95% of people who win the lottery go right into, they're actually worse off than before they won the lottery, because they don't have that abundance mindset. So you can't go from lack and limitation to freedom until you start to. So what does freedom mean to you? So anybody who's listening, or yourself, Donna, when you start, what does freedom really mean? And so get into that, whether it's an abundance lifestyle or freedom, and what would it really be to live free and be free? What does that mean?
You know what? That would mean that I could travel anywhere I wanted to at the drop of a hat at any time. I can pick up and go wherever I wanted to go in the world. To me, that's like the ultimate freedom. Because that means I have money in my account, and I can just, pull out my debit card, and I can just go on the internet or go to the airlines and say, here's my card, and I could fly first class, and I can just do what I wanted to do anytime I wanted. That's freedom to me.
Okay. And there's other aspects there that you can, so you know what freedom, and I could feel you getting into that. So that's like having, so that's the energy that's going to pull you forward so that you take action.
Yeah.
And then other stuff will come up. But some people have never even gotten that far. They're scared to even go, like, they said there's other stuff that comes up. Freedom to me means free from ego. Okay. So Cassie, say more than that. Say more about that. So if you were free from the ego, so in other words, what does the ego mean to you? So I want to talk about the ego here, because a lot of people will say that I want to be free from the ego. I want to get rid of the ego, kill the ego. The ego's my enemy, all of that. Exactly. The ego's bad. If you were to get rid of the ego completely, absolutely, you wouldn't be able to do anything. You'd just be a block. Because the ego is your unconscious that allows you to take a shower, put your shoes on, get dressed, drive a car, eat, work. That's your unconscious. The things you do every day, you don't even think about it. Using a computer, turning on your computer, putting on your runners, going for a walk. If you had to think, oh, how do I walk today? Okay, put one step in front of me and then the other step. That literally is your unconscious mind. So it's when the ego, the disempowering patterns, beliefs, thoughts, feelings that we were conditioned with as a child, they work. So these are like survival patterns.
Yes.
And survival, so defaults, we call them. You just default to that under times of stress. When generally though, as we grow into, become adults, they're disempowering. They don't support it. So, patterns or survival skills that worked when we were kids don't necessarily work as adults, but we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. So at that point, the ego is in the driver's seat. You don't want to kill the ego or get rid of the ego. You want to put it in your passenger seat. So think of the ego. The ego is your unconscious conditioned mind. So it's a unconscious conditioned ego mind. So your ego, what's the ego's job? The ego is to keep you safe. So to the ego, same equals safe. You can remember that. Same equals safe. Why is nothing changing? Because the ego wants to keep everything the same so it can keep you safe. Growing up, whose job was it to keep you safe? Your parents. So to your parents just, as long as they parent you so that you're an adult, they've done their job because you're safe. You made it to adulthood. What takes over then? Your unconscious conditioned ego mind. And until we become aware, we will parent ourselves just the same way as our parents parented us. So that's why you can get harsh. That's why so many people are harsh and critical on themselves, because their parents were also critical and harsh to themselves and didn't support them. So they're trying to move ahead in life, do this, and they're stuck. And why am I not moving forward? How come I'm not taking action? Well, because you're parenting yourself with harshness and you're critical and telling yourself you're not good and you're wrong, just like your parents did. So that's where kindness and compassion comes in. When you can make that switch to, so now ask yourself, if a little kid came in, cute little, 2, 3, 4-year-old boy or girl, and just kind of, walked in and looking all cute and everything, are you going to start telling that kid they're no good and they're, being harsh and everything else? Yeah, most people. But that's what you're doing to your inner child. That's what most people do, not everybody. When you stop doing that and you can have compassion for yourself, kindness, you can forgive yourself, that's when you take your ego mind, your unconscious, put in the passenger seat. And that is when your unconscious becomes your partner in success.
Wow. So then, Joy, it's our self-talk. It's, is it us self-talking to self-talking? Is it us talking to ourselves about, I know for myself, when I get stuck in fear, I'm like, oh, I know I should do that, but I haven't done that. You know what I mean? And that's how I stay stuck. It's like, I know I should be working on X, Y, and Z, but I'm on Facebook, you know?
Right.
And but I know what I should do. I know what I should do. Is that is that ego keeping me safe and sane? Because it does require me to get out of that and stop, doing this little stuff, Facebook, all these little time consuming things to really get done what I need to get done.
Talking about this, as you talked about it, Donna, I could feel your chest area, like literally shutting down, like almost a wall. And that's your heart. So you're shutting down your heart. So as soon as you say, I should be doing this, I should, well, should is a guilt word, but I should be taking action. You start making yourself wrong. Okay, I'm on Facebook. I want to be on Facebook because I'm connecting and having fun and such, but I should be doing this. So you're trying to guilt yourself, just like a parent does often, guilt yourself into doing something that, is going to make you take you for it. Well, I should, because, the world says do this and I should be improving myself. And, that's what personal growth says, to improve myself and take action and all the rest. So I should be, but I don't really want to. But, so just the way you would, if you were parented, not that your parents might have had, your parents did the best they could with what they knew.
Absolutely.
Their job is to keep you safe. That's really ultimately their only job. So some parents, do a good job. Some don't do, such a great job when we're growing up. But parents only do what they know how to do.
Right.
They can't do anything else. You with your kids, my parents, whatever, they didn't know how to do, like they just couldn't. They didn't have it in them. And yet there's still stuff to work through. We all have stuff to work through. But I could feel you when you were talking about that, your heart area, your chest area right here. You can't see me. Yeah. So your whole chest area right up to your throat was literally hardening up and shutting down. Yeah. So you're shutting down the heart towards yourself. So you're shutting down compassion to yourself. So what we would do there is, okay, little Donna, so little Dawn is really feeling sad and grieving because, so you're parenting her instead of saying, in that moment, connect with little Donna. What do you want, little Donna? Well, I just want some kindness, compassion. I can hear her voice get really small. All I want is kindness and compassion and love and, see me, hear me. And that is so freeing. And I remember when I first got in this kind of work, inner child, I thought it was just about the stupidest thing ever. I really did. I wanted nothing to do with inner child. But I've learned that's where the wisdom is. Because when we can connect with the little boy or girl inside us, then we become whole. And we have a relationship with ourselves. And talk about, get into a good relationship. When you have that relationship with yourself, you can take that to another relationship.
So when people get stuck like this, is it something to like trigger or to remind them to say, okay, little Donna having some issues. I can start talking to little Donna. Okay, you know what, little Donna, this is great. Everything is fine. I can talk to myself like that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Anytime. I think that in order to become whole and complete, when you can connect to your inner self, the little girl, boy inside you, that's when wholeness starts. So I want to talk about relationships here for a minute. So it'll kind of explain it a little bit. So you know how often people they get into the honeymoon stage and then I talked about this earlier, power struggle. So I won't really get into it, but then they start maybe power struggle starts. We all hit it. And there's arguments, there's fights, there's misunderstandings. We all get there in all relationships, friendship, business relationships, or romantic relationships. And so the way most relationships are, probably about 99.9% of the world, is two people that are, say their emotional tank is approximately 50% filled up, about that. And maybe they've got a little awareness or none at all, usually. And they come together. and they make 100%. And that's when you hear people say, you complete me.
Ah,
Because they're both emotionally, they're emotional. So think of it as emotional tank, and it's 50% filled up. You can call that 50% half empty or half full. They come
right.
together. Together, they're 100% filled up. However, that's why power struggle can be so intense, because then they start to separate and search for their individual identities, and they fight to be right. And because they're not emotionally filled up, they don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't know how to take care of their emotional needs. They're all about the other person. This is when codependency starts.
Yep.
I'm happy because you make me happy. I have to make you happy. It becomes enmeshed, symbiotic. It just becomes. So that's the common model of relationship. I'm okay, but I'm only, kind of lonely. Well, let's get together and complete each other. That only works so long.
Right.
So what you're looking for, the new model relationship is where two people who are, as much as possible, 100% emotionally filled up, meaning they're both self-aware, they've got friends, they've got life, they're doing their thing, they're happy to some extent. And so there's two people here. The relationship is the third entity. So it's like a third entity. So these two people are living their lives, they're having fun, they're doing their thing, they're emotionally filled up. And then when they come together, the third entity is a relationship, and they can work. It's almost like when it starts out, I'm going to call it a baby, but it's flourishing. And you can make that relationship whatever you want. And when they're together, that relationship builds and it thrives and it grows from there. And then they go their separate ways, for a while, and then they come together on their relationship, but they don't need the other person to be happy.
Right.
And so that's what people are looking for. So when people that's why it's so important to have some, level of self-awareness and accountability.
Absolutely. And I'm excited for people to hear this, and I'm excited for them to have the opportunity to do some personal work with you, because I know the personal work that I've done with you has just been amazing, and I can always draw back on there and on the work that we've done, because it's all recorded, folks. That's the beauty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Your scans and your clearings are recorded, and sometimes advertising has taught us, sometimes you have to hear something 7 times before it clicks or sticks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so, yes. So those who are picking up package C and B, and specifically C. Hey, Joy.
That chakra program, I would say, is the best work I've done yet.
Oh.
And
okay.
the reason why I was in Emmanuel Dagger's 28-day remote, or it was 21-day remote healing program in March. And the last weekend, so he kind of guided the energy. So we went through our really intense stuff. And then the last weekend we came to a real peak. That's when I recorded it. So the energy on it is so high, and like there's this real inner peace and calmness to all those recordings.